to go and replace my GoPro battery, but I did get the Riley fired up. I made the same mistake I made last time, which was with my fuel tap. I switched it to the main position, but of course I've only got about a gallon of fuel in the tank, so the main won't pick that up. I have to use the reserve position, but I got the car to run, that was fine, and nothing from the dynamo. So I have, this is the dynamo generator here. I've removed it from the car, obviously, which is a pain in the neck. It sits on 3 studs down in there. You can get to the bottom one easily enough. You can get to this one over here, okay, but the one in there is really hard to get to. It's one of those jobs where you move the spanner a 1/6 of a turn each time, turn it round, you can move it another little bit. Hopefully I can probably use a magnet to get the nut on there and get it done up most of the way. The other thing I had to do is take off my stone guard, because you might remember originally I had it with the curved cutout on the bottom. That's to clear the dynamo. Can we see that? That one up there. But I didn't like how it looked, so I made a new one with a straight edge at the bottom. But of course that means it covers the front of the dynamo, so to get the dynamo off you have to take the stone guard off. That wasn't a big deal. At least I didn't have to remove the whole radiator. And what I found is the contacts in here were all black. I have had this apart and I have rebuilt it and cleaned it. I just hadn't run it for ages. So I have the field and the output hooked together and an earth. I'm using an analog meter. I find analog meters are often a lot better to use because you can see what's happening. You can see the meter moving. And there was nothing wrong with it. The resistances are all fine, the wiring's all fine. And turning it over with a drill, I was only getting 0.2 of a volt, I think. But I could see it was trying to generate. So I gave it a good clean with this stuff. Electrical clean and lube all over the commutator, and that got rid of all of the black. Took it off pretty easily. And that was it, that fixed it. So if we now hook the drill up to this, which is a little bit tricky. We spin this up. Yep. This drill will do about 2000 RPM at full speed, and let's see if I can do it. At 2000 RPM, I'm getting 36 volts out of it, which seems about right. The first time I did this, I sprayed a lot of that stuff to clean this, completely forgetting that it's actually flammable. So I did spin this up and there was a thump and a burst of flame. I had to put the fire out, but no damage was done. It was just the excess of that burning off. But you can see even after a little bit of running, it's getting quite a lot of carbon on it. So what I'm wondering is, do these brushes need to be replaced? I suspect that's probably what the issue is. Maybe the brushes are just old and they're falling apart. Do they do that? I don't know. But you can see even after a short time of running, I'm getting black gunk building up on there. That's the carbon off the brushes. So that seems to be the problem. I did re-flash the generator before I tried it. It wasn't that. So I think I'll see if it's possible to get new brushes for this. It's probably sensible to replace them while I've got it all out. I can't remember off the top of my head. No, that's pretty easy to get to them. That's the brush there. It's on a little spring. I just need to undo that bolt there. It's a 2-brush Dynamo. I think they were originally 3-brush, but I'm pretty sure I've converted it over. And I will use a more modern sort of regulator on it with the appropriate resistance to limit the charging. That's the second brush in there. I wonder if that was shorting. If that's been shorting, might need to put a bit better insulation around that. Because if that was shorting to the case there, that would probably also stop it working. Although no, that's the earth brush, I think. So I think that goes to the case anyway. It's a bit hard to see where things go to. I can buzz it out with my meter. Let's try that. Hard with one hand. Yeah, that's the earth brush anyway. Another brush. Is it the earth brush? Well, it's because the resistance on these is so low. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that one is connected to earth. And this one should be through the windings. Yeah, this meter won't read low enough. So I do just need to make sure that is properly isolated. Don't think... Oh no, you can. So there's plenty of carbon on the brush still, so it's not like it's low. Maybe I just need to clean them. But yeah, so that should work. I'll probably just give it a clean, test it for a bit, and then put it back on the car. And at some point I'm going to need to figure out how I'm going to wire this up, what I'm going to use for regulators. I'm going to use a slightly more modern, but still not too far out of period, probably like an RB106 type thing. It's one of these, which has a regulator and a cutout in it. And that will all live somewhere easy to get to, possibly on... I really hate motorcycles like that. I mean, I like engines and I like bikes and that kind of thing, but why do they need them so loud? I don't understand. Anyway, maybe on a panel that's in here that's easy to get to, where you can swing it down or something like that. We'll see. Yeah, I wonder if I can check the other brush, see what that looks like as well. I've got this Dynamo hooked up and seems to be working fairly well now. I can order replacement carbon brushes from the Riley Register Spares, so I may order some of those. I think they were £17, hopefully not too much for postage. But since I had it wired up, I thought I would have a look at some of my voltage regulators that I've got. I seem to have a collection of them. These are mainly RB106 type regulators. This one's really just a parts one, I think. Different screw types. But these all work much the same way. The first one I grabbed out of my pile didn't work, which was interesting. That was this one. And I haven't been able to make that one work yet, so I need to look at that. But these all kind of work in much the same way. This is one I got from that last swap meet. It's basically the same thing with some extra terminals, extra fused terminals on it. But the way these work, there's 2 coils. They're actually incredibly simple devices in terms of what they do, but the actual operation of them is very, very clever. The way they do things and the way they compensate for various things. But basically, you've got 2 coils. One on the right is a cutout, and the one on the left is the regulator. The cutout is there to disconnect the dynamo output from the battery while the dynamo isn't generating any voltage. If you connect the dynamo straight to the battery, it'll spin like a motor. So the cutout waits until the voltage of the dynamo has risen enough that the battery isn't going to try and spin it like a motor, and then it cuts it into the circuit. The one on the left is the regulator, and this is just basically a relay with a contact that switches very, very rapidly. So as the dynamo voltage goes up, it'll get to a certain point and that relay switches off. So the voltage goes up, switches off, it comes down. And it just keeps doing that. So it's continually switching on and off. And what that does over time is it kind of averages out the voltage, basically. It keeps it at a set level. And that's what, if you just run the dynamo by itself, the voltage will go reasonably high, pretty high. You could see when I was running it on the drill before, I was getting 35, 36 volts out of it. So that keeps it down to about 13, 14 volts. So I've got it all wired up here, much the way it would be on the car. This little lamp it's actually my points testing light bulb. It's just a light bulb on 2 leads. I have that wired up the way the ignition light would be. So effectively what this is telling me is it's across the dynamo output and the output coming out of the regulator, effectively the battery. So because there's 0 volts coming out of the dynamo and 12 coming from the battery, it's lighting the bulb. As you spin up the dynamo, this gets dimmer and dimmer and then eventually goes out. So I have my analog meter sitting on the dynamo output to see what that does. And I have my digital meter here sitting across the battery. So if I spin this up, we should see the lamp dim. The cutout will move. You can see you shouldn't do that for too long because it can get stuck and it'll burn out the contacts. But if I manually operate the cutout, you'll see the dynamo spin, and that's because it's the battery trying to drive it. Probably with this little battery, I wouldn't actually be able to burn it out. I don't think that would supply enough current. But that neatly shows what the cutout is there to do. So I'm going to spin this up with the drill. We should see that dim, the cutout contact change, and the voltage here come up as the dynamo starts generating, and you should see the voltage here go up to the charging voltage for the battery. So currently it's 12.34. This is actually the battery I've been using in my little Coventry Climax engine, so probably needs charging. If I can get this on there. So sure you can see the cutout or not, but let's try it again. The screen's so tiny it's hard to see what it can see and what it's actually focusing on. But that's pretty much working how it should, and it's showing that this regulator is working fine, which is good. I might try some of my other ones and see what they do. I did try my electronic one, that seems to work as well. This thing is one I made, and if you go online you can find some articles by a guy called Dr. Hugo Holden, and he goes into the operation of these, and he came up with this design using more modern components to do the same thing. So I just built one of those based on his instructions. This is the unit out of an alternator actually, and I'm pretty sure this one works fine as well. I was going to use that on my Austin 7, but in the end I just used a mechanical one. I might give a couple of the others a try. The other thing worth noting is that was giving 13 point something volts to charge the battery. I don't believe that is high enough for modern batteries. So this is the battery for the Riley. It's quite small because there isn't a lot of space, and I'm pretty sure somewhere on here it mentions that this is a calcium battery. Sure, it does say that somewhere. The calcium plate batteries, they're still lead acid, but there's an additive or something they've got in the plates, which is where the calcium comes into it. But they actually need a slightly higher voltage to charge fully, and I don't think an old setup like this will give enough voltage to get a full battery charge. But I think you can adjust the regulator. I believe one of these screws you are able to change to tweak that voltage. So I may be able to bump it up. I believe the calcium batteries need 16 volts, something like that. I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head. But this is why more modern battery chargers I've actually got a switch on this one which gives the different positions. So you've got gel, which is what I was using for that little battery, standard lead acid or calcium, and that's because it needs that higher charging voltage. The smart chargers that I've been using, the C-Tech ones, I think they figure that out when you connect the battery up. But no, that's quite cool. I'm glad that that's working. I might, like I say, quickly try some of my other regulators and see if they work a bit better. The first one I tried, I haven't got anything out of it yet. But that's okay, I've got plenty of them for parts. You can buy modern versions of these, but I think there is a decent high quality modern version that you can get. You can also get electronic conversions. There are also cheap modern versions which I believe come from India, and apparently they're not very good. The electronic ones, of course, the people selling those will swear that that's the best thing to do, but I think these old ones, if the contacts aren't burnt out and you give them a quick clean, I don't see anything wrong with them. I'm sure they'll, some of these must be 80, 90 years old and they're still going. So just plain old electromechanical. So I think I'm gonna leave mine as standard. This isn't actually standard for this Year of car, really. I can't remember I don't think it even had a regulator originally. It would have just had a cutout to disconnect the battery, which would have been like this. So this unit is just a cutout and a fuse. So originally it would have just been something like that. But I do kind of want to have the regulator in there, so this isn't a too out of period modification, I would say. Turns out these aren't all RB106s. You have to look at the little labels on them down there to see what they actually are. Some of these are really old, so it's hard to get a decent contact. All the screws and things need cleaning. But I do have a few different ones. This is an RF98. They're all kind of similar. One of them is actually 6 volt, so it's a good thing I didn't try that one. But this one is interesting. So this is an RB106, and I think this one is faulty, and it's faulty in that the cutout works, but the regulator doesn't. And so what you'll see if I spin this up is apart from the torque twisting the thing. Hopefully you saw there that as I revved up the dynamo, the light got brighter and the voltage from the dynamo output shot up really high. So that's one that seems to be a little bit faulty, and I think it's because the regulator isn't working. So interesting. But I do have one decent working one, this larger one, so should be enough to get some sort of charging system going in the car. Thought I'd take one of my supposedly dead regulators, see if I could get it going. And there are a few things to do on this one. The first one was cleaning the contacts. That's pretty easy, pretty obvious how to do that. The second thing that was wrong on this one was the cutout armature here was bent, so it wasn't, the cutout wasn't operating. So I just bent that up just to get it working. There's proper ways to adjust these, but I just wanted to see if I could make it work. And the second problem was that the regulator wasn't adjusted properly either, so that wasn't cutting in and out. So I've adjusted that. This top setting and this nut, or this little screw for the contact, you set with feeler gauges and things, and then you can adjust the voltage with the little screw on the back there. So that's good. I've taken one that was dead and I have managed to get that to work. I need to do some more playing with how you actually set the output voltage, but it means I should be able to adjust the output voltage so it'll be high enough to charge the calcium battery in the car. They need 14.8 as a normal charging voltage, but they can, I think if they get discharged too far, you need a higher voltage to start them charging again. I think it's about 16 volts. But I'll probably always carry a little battery charger in the car anyway. I think that's all I'm going to do for tonight. But yeah, these little things are quite fun to play with. And I think even if they say they're completely dead, unless they're burned out, I don't think there's too much that can go wrong with them. And there's just some simple adjustments and things you can do to get them to work again. I'm not sure if I'll use this version or the sort of 5-terminal version. The only advantage of this one is it's got more terminals to take things off, and it's got the neat little built-in fuse holders. The fuses sort of clip in like that, which is pretty cool. Plus there's room for 2 spare fuses on the cover. I think it's time for me to sort of pack up for the day. Unfortunately, I have to go into town tomorrow for work, so I won't be able to go and get more welding gas, but maybe Tuesday, Wednesday I can pop up the road and get that. And then it's time to start making panels, I think.